On the first day of NATO summit in Lithuanian capital Vilnius did not meet Ukrainian President Zelensky's expectations as he failed to get a concrete timeline for Kyiv's membership bid. Even though the summit communique says that Ukraine's future is in NATO, it did not set a timetable for Ukraine to join the alliance. Now, according to the communique, NATO will be in a position to extend an invitation to Ukraine to join the alliance when allies agree and conditions are met. NATO's chief Jens Stoltenberg said that leaders have approved the most comprehensive defense plans since the end of the Cold War for Ukraine.
We also made clear that we will issue an invitation for Ukraine to join NATO when allies agree and conditions are met. This is a strong package for Ukraine and a clear path towards its membership in NATO.
The G7 nations are also expected to issue a declaration on how they will help Kyiv and deter any new aggression in the coming years on the second day of the summit. However, Czech President Petr Pavel says that support for Ukraine among allies is only going to decrease with time as it will start to suffer war fatigue. On the sidelines of the summit, the Czech leader said that window of opportunity for Ukraine to advance will close by the end of the year. A number of important elections in 2024, including in Ukraine, Russia and the United States, will create a completely different situation by that time, and Ukraine will have to achieve significant advances till then. He says whatever is achieved by the end of this year will be the baseline for negotiation in the war. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymr Zelensky has expressed his disappointment with a vague wording of a joint communique. He has said that it's unprecedented and absurd. The time frame is not set for Ukraine's membership. He called NATO's uncertainty over the matter a weakness. Voice of America correspondent Miroslava Gongadze is joining us live from Warsaw, Poland. Miroslava, good to see you. Allies failed to form a consensus to back Ukraine's NATO bid. Was this a unanimous decision or were there some concerns raised?
Pleasure to be here today. Absolutely. The issue is that Ukraine had a very, very high expectations for this summit. And President Zelensky, as you noticed, was very disappointed, and he publicly showed his disappointment. Before the summit, he made a very serious push to actually for alliance to give some concrete measures or concrete plan for Ukraine accession to NATO. He visited many Eastern European countries and signed bilateral agreements with them in support of NATO membership of Ukraine. However, NATO allies don't have united position on Ukrainian accession, and mainly because of the Russian war in Ukraine. And accepting country that is in war is unprecedented for NATO. And as the analysts say, NATO is not ready for actually battle as Ukraine had to battle Russians on their own land. So in this situation, as actually was predicted, the NATO found a middle ground between giving Ukraine a path to membership and not really giving exact plan or exact timeline for that membership. General Secretary Stoltenberg actually said that there is no timeline and nobody had timeline for NATO membership, and it's true. However, in Ukraine is in the war, in crisis situation, and Ukraine needed something more concrete. But today, during the second day of the summit, the expectation is that those more or less concrete plans would be written or agreed upon.
Miroslava, let me ask you this. Ukrainian President Volodymr Zelensky has expressed his disappointment, like you mentioned there, with a vague wording of a joint communique from NATO. What impact will this latest development have on the war, if any, considering the hopes dashed for Zelensky?
Basically, many leaders of Eastern European countries, the biggest supporter of NATO, of Ukrainian NATO accession, said that why the message is like a clear message from NATO is important, because this message is not for Ukraine. This message is for Russia, to actually see that NATO is in a full backing Ukraine fully. However, NATO was not ready for that, and it doesn't really. You cannot say that it would have impact on the war, because basically NATO countries actually said that they would be supplying weapons, they would be training Ukrainian pilots. So basically, the plan for supporting Ukraine in this war is actually even bigger than it was before. France agreed to supply long-range weapons, and they signed the coalition for training Ukrainian pilots. So all of that has been done. So the NATO alliance are trying to help Ukraine as much as they can. The only it's all only political message that counts here, and we will see how Moscow will react to it.
All right, Slava, lastly, I want to know from you, could you elaborate further on Czech president's comments that support for Ukraine among allies is only going to decrease with time, as it will start to suffer war fatigue? Is this a sentiment that is being shared by other member states?
In some way, yes. Everybody is kind of anticipating the election starting in election campaign starting in the United States. That would impact this the support for Ukraine. In other countries, as you mentioned before. So those war fatigue. I mean, the full-scale invasion is going on for more than 500 days. So obviously there is some kind of fatigue of that. However, again, the Biden administration and the Stoltenberg are saying that this summit was historic in a way that they basically accepted Sweden into NATO, or Turkey dropped their opposition to NATO. So the member states become bigger, stronger, and they are united in supporting Ukraine. We obviously will see. Ukraine is right now on offensive. There are some. They are gaining ground as more ammunition. They are getting more skilled in the war. Russia is weakening. We saw the crisis a few weeks ago. What was going on? There's a lot of uncertainties in Kremlin. So, but analysts agree that probably this fall would be kind of decisive moment for this Russian war in Ukraine.
All right, I've been talking to Voice of America correspondent Miroslava Gogandze. Thank you very much for talking to us today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.